Let's dive right into this explainer because we've got a seriously fascinating topic today for anyone looking at real estate. We're going to explore how California's incredibly diverse wildlife fundamentally shapes what you can build and honestly how you manage rural property. It's this vital layer of information that goes way, way beyond just looking at a property's price tag or its location on a map.
When you're out there walking a beautiful open plot of land, it is so easy, almost too easy, to envision exactly where you want to place a home, cut a driveway, or throw up a fence. But wait, before you start creating that new road in your mind, we really need to address this dangerous assumption that buying undeveloped property means you're acquiring a ready-to-build blank canvas. Actually, scratch that. It's almost never a blank canvas. Many undeveloped properties might look ready for immediate construction, but the reality on the ground? It's usually a whole lot more complex.
Because here is the reality we have to deal with. Every parcel exists within a larger environmental system. You aren't just buying dirt, right? You are buying into a pre-existing living ecosystem that's going to dictate the rules of your development. The wildlife that already calls that land home is going to actively influence what you can build, how you manage the vegetation, and even which everyday activities are appropriate for that specific property.
So here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll unpack the blank canvas myth. Then we'll look at protected species and corridors, examine water and native vegetation, figure out how to balance your land use goals, and finally, discover how wildlife actually increases property value.
Starting us off with Section 1, the blank canvas myth.
What makes California so unique is its absolute wild variety of geography. Thanks to massive elevation changes, huge climate differences, and being right up against the Pacific coastline, your prospective property might feature coastal marshes, dense redwood forests, chaparral hillsides, high mountain grasslands, or, hey, even deserts. And the wildlife that dominates that specific region, it's going to instantly influence your land management. A parcel dominated by deer is going to require a completely different approach to land use than a parcel supporting nesting birds, amphibians, or endangered mammals.
Moving on to Section 2, Protected Species and Corridors.
California protects a ton of species through both state and federal laws because of declining populations or limited habitats. We're talking everything from the California tiger salamander and the desert tortoise to the San Joaquin kit fox. So does finding a rare red-legged frog ruin your multi-million-dollar investment? Well, not necessarily. I mean, it is kind of funny to think about a tiny little amphibian completely halting a massive bulldozer, but what it actually means is you're likely going to need additional permits, biological surveys, or just some sensible adjustments to where you place your buildings, roads, and fences. Knowing this before you buy is absolutely crucial for accurately estimating your costs and timelines.
Now, the crucial point we have to talk about here is migration. Animals do not care about your property lines. To them, fences are just annoying obstacles in their living room. Many species heavily depend on migration routes that connect their feeding areas, breeding grounds, and seasonal habitats. So, if your land happens to sit in an established wildlife corridor, local planners are going to review your road and fencing designs pretty closely to ensure animals can still move through safely. Dense development or improper fencing can completely interrupt these vital patterns, which is exactly why modern land planning mandates designs that preserve this movement.
Let's look at Section 3, Water and Native Vegetation.
Water literally influences nearly every single aspect of land use. Identifying even temporary, seasonal water sources during your due diligence is just essential. Listen to this. Even a basic drainage channel that is bone dry for half the year can qualify as a protected wetland. Landowners typically need permits before they can fill, grade, or alter these areas. And protecting these wetlands isn't just about ticking a box for regulatory compliance. It directly benefits wildlife health and maintains the local water quality of your entire investment.
And right alongside water, we've got the plant life. The plants growing on your property dictate exactly which animals live there. Instead of rolling in and clearing everything out to make that blank canvas we talked about earlier, responsible landowners actually focus on preserving and restoring native grasses and shrubs. If you just remove native vegetation without a plan, it totally reduces habitat quality and drastically increases soil erosion. But by managing invasive species and supporting native plants, you end up building a much more sustainable, resilient landscape.
All right, Section 4, Balancing Land Use Goals.
What's truly interesting here is realizing that human activity and wildlife habitats aren't mutually exclusive. They really aren't. Whether you want to farm, harvest timber, or just hunt and hike, your activities can actually support a healthier landscape. Take agriculture, for example. Maintaining natural vegetation buffers and using wildlife-friendly fencing protects both your crops and native species.
Or in forestry and fire management, selective thinning reduces wildfire risk while actively improving the habitat for the remaining wildlife. It's all about striking that perfect balance.
And that brings us to Section 5, Wildlife Increases Property Value.
A lot of prospective buyers assume that wildlife restrictions are a pure negative, that they'll just limit development and sink the property value. But in many cases, the exact opposite proves true. Rather than seeing wildlife as a punishment, well-managed habitat actually maintains open space and vastly enhances the long-term appeal of your property. Think about it. A conserved, healthy ecosystem attracts future buyers who are specifically looking for privacy, beautiful scenic landscapes, and rich recreational opportunities like birdwatching and fishing.
So how do we put all of this into action? To avoid some seriously expensive surprises after closing, you must treat this environmental review process as a mandatory part of your early budgeting and planning. Don't just look at the acreage and the price tag. You need to check the local zoning regulations, look at protected habitat maps, identify exactly where the floodplains and wetlands are, and see if there are any existing conservation easements on the deed. Bringing in qualified professionals early on makes land ownership infinitely easier.
Ultimately, thoughtful planning creates way better outcomes for both landowners and wildlife. By listening to the landscape and planning ahead, you can create a beautiful, highly functional outcome for both your investment and California's natural resources. So whether your goal involves recreation, agriculture, or future construction, I want to leave you to ask yourself this one vital question before you ever sign on the dotted line. What is your land's ecosystem telling you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps you look at undeveloped land in a whole new, vibrant way.